For Martha McSally. It'll be one of the best votes you've ever cast.
That was President Donald Trump campaigning for Martha McSally in the 2018 Senate race. She lost to Democrat Kyrsten Sinema, part of a run of Republican defeats in Arizona during the Trump era. Now, the big question, can the president win Arizona this year? Joining us with some answers, Mark Lauder, the Trump campaign's Director of Strategic Communications. Welcome to Square Off.
Well, thank you for having me.
You know the results as well as I do. In 2016, President Trump won Arizona by the smallest margin since Bill Clinton defeated Bob Dole in '96. First Democrat to win the Senate in 24 years. Other offices have gone Democrat during his era. What's going on?
Well, I think there's one thing to say when it's a midterm election, when the president is not on the ballot. I think the electorate looks quite different than during a presidential election cycle. But we're absolutely confident that the president's going to carry Arizona again in 2020.
So my question is, what would make you confident? What we've seen over the last 3 years is his poll numbers have remained in the 46 to 50% range, and yet we, as other states are enjoying the best economy Arizona's seen in 15 years. Why hasn't he been able to move the needle in a historically Republican state?
Well, I think a lot of these opinion polls are just snapshots in time. And when it comes to, especially with the head-to-head matchups, we really haven't even started a campaign yet against an opponent. We won't even know who our opponent is, probably not even until Milwaukee this summer, because they have such a fractured and divided field right now. So that campaign will start in earnest. But when it comes to the campaign for November, it'll be a choice. And it's going to be a stark choice between, do you want to keep the policies that have created such a strong environment, an economic environment here in Arizona? I mean, just looking at the numbers real quickly, under Obama and Biden, the state lost 2,000 manufacturing jobs. In just 3 years under President Trump, nearly 19,000 manufacturing jobs have been created in Arizona. You take that record, and then you contrast it with what the Democrats are offering, which is taking away people's private health insurance, raising taxes on folks to give free health care to illegal immigrants, open borders. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So many of the policies that the Democrats have endorsed right now are so liberal, are so more closely aligned to California than they are to anyone else. It's one of the reasons why when I'm traveling the country, I hear people coming up to me and saying, it's going to be pretty easy to go in that ballot box and pull the lever for President Trump.
You mentioned health care. Just this past week, President Trump said at some point he'd be open to cutting entitlement programs. He then walked that back. That's the third rail in American politics. In a second term, would he be open to cutting entitlements like Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid?
No, the president's been absolutely clear. He wants to make these programs stronger. And because we have a stronger economy, it is actually benefiting those programs. And so he's committed to that, to the process and the policies that he talked about in 2016. And you can look to see what he's doing in office right now, where we're trying to strengthen those programs, eliminate fraud, eliminate waste, and make sure that those programs are available to the people who've paid into them and earned them.
Well, we've called this Battleground Arizona, just shifting to the election again, because one of the things we're seeing on the ground is a younger electorate, a more diverse electorate than we saw here 10 years ago even. How much of a challenge is that for President Trump, and is that one of the reasons he isn't getting above 50?
Well, I actually think it's an opportunity for President Trump, because when we look at the results, and we can talk about things, whether it be with Black Americans, with the Hispanic and Latino Americans, they are succeeding in ways that has never been seen before in our country's time frame. The president in 2016, I remember when he went into that church and said, "What do you have to lose?" He's now backed that up with results. And so one of the things that our Republican parties are doing here in Arizona, we've got people on the ground right now, is we're going into non-traditional Republican voting blocks and talking about the actual success they have seen. And we're seeing it in some of the polls that show President Trump getting anywhere between 30 and 35% of the Black vote. We see him getting a growing percentage of the Latino and Hispanic vote because they like the results they're seeing.
I'll end with the Latino vote because that is a growing segment here, cycle after cycle. President pardoned Joe Arpaio, which was very, very controversial here. Joe Arpaio will likely be back on the ballot for sheriff in 2020. Will the president support Joe Arpaio as he runs for sheriff?
Well, I'm never going to get ahead of the president of the United States when it comes to endorsements. Obviously, I'm sure there will be a strong field there. We'll trust the voters in Arizona to make their decisions. And the president's going to focus on winning his election, and it's something that we're very confident he's going to accomplish.
All right, Mark Lauder, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.